to start the meeting. Go ahead.
Very well. Thank you all for attending the 27th meeting of Ecma TC54. I can't believe it's been 27 meetings already. So thank you all for being here. First order of business, let's go ahead and approve the prior meeting minutes, which are here. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to look through these. Again, these are automatically converted to Markdown from the Google Doc that Alyssa and many of the others contribute to. Any objections to this, to these minutes?
No objection.
All right. All right, I hear none. Thank you so much. Moving on, I don't think there's any new attendees today, so I have one minor announcement. Then I'll see if anybody else has announcements as well. I know Philippe had a conversation with some folks over at MITRE, which is amazing. I recently had somebody from MITRE also reach out specifically around package URL and two basic types of questions. One is like, when do we think this is going to happen? And I provided a, what we believe might occur in terms of a December timeframe. That's kind of what we're hoping for anyway. No guarantees, obviously. But the more important thing was, is there going to be any breaking changes between the community work and the Ecma standard? And of course, the answer is no. All of that Perl community work is happening in the open, and the folks from MITRE can obviously participate in that if they so choose. The basic premise, however, is that they are working diligently to get both Perl and Gitoids added to the CVE program. This means, as a first-class citizen, Perl and would new vulnerabilities in the CVE program, and that follows through to the National Vulnerability Database, as well as others, could in fact in the future have a Perl as opposed to a CPE, which is a massive steps forward. So anyway, that was kind of the announcement that I had. It sounds like they are just trying to get all their ducks in a row in terms of timing of things. So Philippe, I'll see if you have any comments on that announcement.
Do you have a link for the announcement? Oh, the announcement you just made. No, the announcement you just is just wonderful. So it's just completely aligned with the discussion I've had there. I wish that we had something a bit more structured and that we're not just reaching to many individuals at once who could have a coordinated discussion. But I don't think it matters in the end, because we have the exact same shared vision and understanding of everything. So there's no problem. Go ahead, Lars.
We just applied to become a CNA ourselves, and there's a lot of working groups. And I was wondering if anyone here, like in the CVE project, and for us it's all new, and I was wondering if any one of you is active, any of these working groups, and if any of you knows which one would be relevant for this Perl topic. So
it's
we can
quality working group.
Quality working group.
Mostly.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it would be useful to engage there then.
Yeah, and just to make sure I understand, for the sake of clarity, Steve, you've engaged with folks from MITRE, which are working for the CVE organization, right?
Yes. They reached out to me specifically because they want to get Perl into the CVE program. So they had some clarifying questions regarding any kind of breaking changes to the Perl spec, which they obviously do not want.
Yeah. Nobody wants that. And I'll give an update on where we are, and we're making great progress on the spec side. So
Yeah. I did kind of let him know that based on the community work that I kind of see, and first of all, I'd like to just commend you, your team, Philippe, Jan as well. I mean, you guys are just machines. You've been going through these tickets. You've been, working them. You've been closing them. The spec is getting better as a result. I think all this Ecma standardization work has really forced the Perl community to, make the specification better, which is amazing. And I think there was just some, I don't know if it's worry, but I believe there was just some clarifying things. They just didn't want any kind of breaking changes.
Yeah,
So
there won't be any breaking changes, but in the end, one thing to understand is that unfortunately there's a lot of interpretation of the spec in the wild. And as we're closing on the 1.0 of the spec for the core spec, we'll have some kind of a task force hackathon kind of thing over a week or so to directively go to each of the open source implementers of libraries that deal with Perl and that parse and produce Perls to help them fix the code, ensure they're spec compliant, and contribute PRs. I mean, not doing that says, hey, you should be spec compliant, but hey, here is a spec update that we've clarified, and here is the PR so you can update your code, whether it's in Rust, Go, JavaScript, Java, and any other language out there. So I think that's going to be helpful for everyone to do that. And I think we can do this kind of SWAT kind of action to make sure we help the whole community at once raise the bar.
amazing.
No,
Yeah,
what's amazing? What's amazing is that there were so many problems in the spec in the first place, and people still adopted it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, true. However, I mean, it's still, I think people adopted it. Speculation, obviously. My own personal reason is that, it fills a need that other identifiers just did not. So, and that still holds true today, even though there might have been some ambiguity and some confusion in the early specs. For sure, it's still solved a challenge that we all kind of share.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any announcements today?
No, I just wanted to make a comment there that Piotr said in the chat that there is a place for Perl in the current schema. But I heard yesterday from Steph, I think, in Python Foundation, that the problem is that the Perl place is, for some reason, placed in the versions, not the component identifier. So it needs to be moved to the proper place. And I think that's the work that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I also think one confusion that we either have to support or classify as a confusion, I think it is that people think that every single Perl has to be resolvable, basically being a URL so I can find the software based on a package URL. I see package URLs as unique identifiers that doesn't have to be resolvable. But that's a misunderstanding I keep hearing out in the market. Some of the package URLs can be resolved by clever algorithms like Debian packages and others, but I don't think that is a requirement on a package URL.
It's not a requirement, but it's a strong need. It's strongly recommended. Each time you cannot resolve that, or each time you cannot infer from looking at the code what a Perl is, it's potentially a source of problems and head scratching down in your supply chain automation. Go ahead, Piotr.
Yeah, to be more precise on my comment, so currently submitting in the CVE schema, you don't have a pair, but you have something that possibly could be converted to a pair. So you have
Yeah.
a namespace and a name. You
Yeah,
don't have
and
all the other elements
and
that are important in Perl.
yeah, that and Perl is also supported as an external reference, as a reference in a CV. What they're talking about here is very specifically use Perl as an alternative to CPs.
Yep.
Not only as a reference, not only as something else, but really as a first-class citizen in the CV schema. And you just have to take everything with a pinch of salt, is that once it's accepted in the CV schema, it will have to trickle down to cv.org and the contribution of CNAs. And eventually then it will go down to the NVD, but that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah,
But
it
that's
also,
that,
you know,
yeah.
requires a certain amount of funding to happen as well. But
Yes.
it is a multi-year thing,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think Philippe mentioned, he said the exact word. It is a first-class citizen in the CVE spec. It's not going to be an add-on. I think that's the important takeaway here.
Yeah.
Great. Any more announcements?
Well, the hackathon at OWASP AppSec Barcelona, which requires Philippe's attendance, but he doesn't want to come for some reason, is going on. We have a logotype, and I think we're gonna start producing some information on the website fairly soon. We have a few meetings to sort out before that happens, but stay tuned and you'll get more information fairly soon. There will be stickers.
There will be stickers. We will have a landing page on CycloneDX.org as well. So, you know, people will be able to get information about the event in one place. So yeah, very good.
And attendance in the hackathon is, we're hoping that it's going to be free, including simple food and stuff. But versus the conference is not free. So
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
come to
So if you're
lovely
gonna be,
Barcelona.
absolutely, if you're going to be in the area, please stop by. It's a one-day event. We will be, what are we going to be testing, Ole?
Definitely T, the Transparency Exchange API. Hopefully, we'll get dependency track with new release and new APIs, updated APIs there as well. But we're as soon as we have the framework for it, we're going to have a roll call among OWASP projects and CycloneDX related projects to see who wants to be there. What they'll get is basically a roundtable and some support and methodology on what we're going to do, how we're going to work, and how we're going to summarize and try to get some feedback for coming hackathons. It's a new model for OWASP that we hope to be able to repeat many times. Maybe that's a model, Philippe, that you can use for package URL hackathons later this year in beautiful Stockholm.
Yeah, I
Possibly.
still have to reply to you on that one too. All right, very good. So expect more information for the hackathon coming soon. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the updates that from the actual working groups. I will say that the threat modeling and blueprints ones, this is requiring a tremendous amount of thought. It is not likely going to make its way into 1.7. They are not necessarily big major changes or additions. It just requires a lot of human thought to go through all the different possible ways that, you know, an organization could document behaviors or could document, you know, a threat model type of thing. So it's it's requiring a lot more effort. So more than likely, still to be undecided, but I am leaning towards punting this to a future version, not 1.7. I'll get to the future version in a minute. OSS sustainability, as I mentioned last month, this working group has been moving forward with the specification. I think it is we have gone through a lot in terms of discussing all the different types of contributions and desires or needs of open source maintainers. As I mentioned last month, there's a high probability that this would be a separate specification. That has essentially solidified. This will be a separate specification. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is create a proposal for a charter to form TG4, and TG4 would essentially be responsible for working on the OSS sustainability specification, whatever we call it. I don't know what we have to give it a name. Naming is one of the hardest challenges of all humanity. But we need to give it a name, not just OSS sustainability, but between now and kind of the next meeting, expect a proposal for a charter and program and scope of work that we can all kind of read through and decide next steps during the next TC54 core meeting. The patents working group, I've just been at capacity right now. This is kind of on me to kind of finalize this at this point. It's been reviewed. We believe that this is going to work really, really well. And I just need to finish some of the documentation and porting it over to XML and protobuf. But I expect to have that done for the next meeting so we can actually review
Sorry,
it
Steve.
and vote on it.
Which one was that?
That was the
this-
patents one.
Patents.
Yep.
So things are, sorry, I missed a note, so I just want to capture it. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. No
So
worries.
things are good there and you're working on documentation?
Yep.
Thanks, sorry.
And that leaves me with kind of what would you say? A decision that I believe between us here and the CycloneDX core working group need to make, not necessarily on this call, mind you, but this is kind of my thought process. We currently have the Transparency Exchange API in active development. One of the aspects of T is insights, or the ability to ask questions. And this is going to be, the API is SBOM format agnostic, but the response from insights will in fact be a normalized model. And that model is essentially going to look a lot like CycloneDX. Not because it's close to our group, but because the way it was designed just so happened to be very API friendly, and it will reduce the number of round trips that a client needs to make to an API server. With that framing in mind, and with knowing that the blueprints and the threat model work is going to extend past 1.7, there are a few changes in the core model that I believe need to be made. These are breaking changes. And what I am proposing is that we start focusing on 2.0 of the spec. I mean, we still need to get 1.7 released. The patents stuff is going to go in there. We've got a number of improvements from the cryptography working group that's going to make its way in there, etc. So we will have a 1.7 release. But post 1.7, I really want to focus on 2.0. And in that kind of transition, I am wanting to frame this more as a transparency expression language versus just a simple bomb format. CycloneDX has kind of been moving that direction anyway, but clearly it is more than just a bill of materials today. So again, nothing to vote on today. I just wanted to put it out there that we are in fact going to be working on 2.0 of the specification, and that will essentially be the basis for the Insights API once we get it that far. So I'll pause and see if there's any comments.
So in 2.0, CLE and sustainability will somehow integrate into CycloneDX 2.0, right? If we want,
Sustainability, no. Sustainability will be a separate spec, but what we're going to be doing in 1.7 is adding support for sustainability as an external reference. So you might have a component, and then you can say, oh, fetch the sustainability of information over here.
so the Insight API, what will it answer with a sustainability document or a CycloneDX document?
Well, we haven't discussed that in T yet. Is T going to support sustainability or not? I don't know. I mean, it will support CLE, but we haven't really talked about whether or not T will support sustainability.
Yeah, well, yeah, we mentioned it, but since sustainability is not there, we didn't discuss it further.
Yeah. Now that it's going to be its own specification, I think we do need to. Yeah.
Philip.
Yes. Yes. Why are you raising your hand?
I had some issues, but you wanted to say something before me. You said in the chat.
Just wanted to make sure that when we move to statuses, if I can go before
on the agenda.
Just on the agenda.
Sure.
Yes.
Yep. I was just going to say then as a comment to Steve, for the sake of this working group, could we possibly create some sort of outline of the releases and match them with Ecma process so we see a potential possible time plan, not to carve in stone as our ancestors up here in the north did, but as a model to work with in these meetings to see that, oh, this fits for the General Assembly there and this fits for there. And possibly we could do that with all the different components we're working with in the various task groups.
So you want like a roadmap or how all these things kind of fit together?
Some sort of simple roadmap where we have work with 1.7, work with 2.0, potential target release for that. And that when we see that and T1.0 and we have T2.0 with insights planned, and when we start seeing that, we can have an overview of what comes when.
Got it. No, that makes sense.
There are many moving
together.
targets and components here in the Ecma process. Thank you.
Yep. No, that's fair. That's a fair comment. All these things are kind of interrelated, and it's kind of hard to kind of, I guess, see how they're all related to one another, as well as, view that through a time lens and a release lens. So I'll try to put something together for that.
Yeah, and I also had a question about the CLE in the chat. It's not one of the projects we have here in TC54, but it's related to many of the common lifecycle enumeration. Are there any updates there, or do we know?
Well, CLE is TG3.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah. So Jordan was not able to join us today. But if there's no other questions, I'd like to pass it over to Philippe to give an update on TG2.
Great, thank you. So TG2, we have done stop and go efforts over the last months or so. But there's been major progress this week which were the culmination of a lot of discussion on commas and periods and columns and whether to encode them or not. At this stage, our plan has always been to progress along this. I'm putting a link to the project board that we're tracking. We used to track the progress, pasting the link in the chat. And the big thing has been the merge of the clarified specification for qualifiers, which is on the latter part on the right side of the Perl, and also a corresponding section that describes character encoding. It will be refined a bit, but it's been a big milestone to have agreement on that, because there's been a lot of discussion. To give you a bit of an idea, the discussion on the specification part for the qualifiers got about over 110 comments on the pull request. So that's challenging, because there's a time when it's a bit overwhelming for any human, and probably most AI too. So that's it. So good thing we're because of these changes here and these agreements. It's not changes in the spec, but because of these updates, there's a lot of things which are going to go much faster after this. And the next big step is going to go through namespace name and versions. Subpath is mostly done. It's been contributed by Jan. And because we've agreed on most of the wording for encoding, this will go much smoother. It's going to be much smoother going forward. So all in all, it feels a bit like we're in a leaky bucket situation, where we're started with about 150 combined issues and pull requests, and we're now closer to 180 to 200. Even though we're closing a lot, the rhythm of closing doesn't match the rhythm of opening. So that's pretty much it. Good progress, as I said. Lots of awesome contribution from members in this group and elsewhere. So slowly but surely, we're getting there. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Philippe. Any questions for Philippe? All right, Ole, you are up with TG1.
And I need to go, so sorry to escape now, but I have a hard stop just now.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
TG1 has made significant progress with the specification, much thanks to Piotr and Valerio. We've been having a couple of workshops between meetings. Unfortunately, mostly because of me having private issues during the month of March, we didn't reach the target of having a beta April 1st, but we are, in my view, fairly close. We have to produce a couple of pull requests, get them done, and finalize the specs. What we've done is compare the OpenAPI spec with the documentation that goes alongside, and they weren't aligned, and we had many good meetings to align them and resolve open issues. So I think we're making progress. We're gonna be a bit delayed, but hopefully in a few weeks, we'll have something that can be implemented in time, good time for the hackathon at the end of May. That's our goal. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ole. Any questions? Okay. I don't have much to report on CLE right now. We've got a bunch of markdown documents in the repo. We are still kind of fleshing out a prototype of what that schema could theoretically look like. So we are still in the prototyping phase. We do not have anything to present, but hopefully by the next meeting, we should have some things fleshed out and a rough timeline on when we believe that that work will show up here to this core group here. So not much to report. I intentionally kind of skipped over the promotions, and I want to go back to those promotions. One of those promotions could lead to a discussion, but Jan, we've got two promos, and I'm going to start with the second one first, which is support for external components with version ranges. And that is this right here. You want to walk us through this promotion, Jan?
Maybe just I would start with a little bit of history. More than a year ago, I was approached with the request whether if a bomb, a CycloneDX bomb, could be used to render the runtime dependencies that are not packaged. And the quick answer was no, we can't do that yet. And initially I had this feature, what we're currently seeing is a solution for that whole story. It is much bigger than that, but that's the small part is just that one. And it was planned for last year for 1.6, didn't finish quite that because we had discussions in the community and everything got settled during the year. So this our current draft is what you're currently seeing. And the opportunities that we are trying to solve, or the things that the features that we are gaining, is the ability to describe non-packaged dependencies. And this opens up a whole world of things that actually most of the package registries are eager to use. Currently, they're using package metadata and everything to describe what a package depends on and what dependencies need to be resolved on install time to enable the software to be runnable at all. And yeah, we're finally having that feature in there too. And yeah.
Yeah, so this has had extensive review, correct, Jan?
Again, please, yeah.
What's that?
I didn't quite understand what you said, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I might be breaking up. This has had extensive review. A lot
Yes.
of people have reviewed this.
Yes, and we had
Yeah.
lots of discussions, arguments, and everything, and came to the conclusion that what we are having here is a thing that benefits us all. Yep.
Yeah. So we have version range. So in addition to supporting obviously a component version, we have a new field called version range. That's going to be the vers spec, right? So that range would be defined in vers. Whether or not the component is external, not packaged, for example, with the application. A very common example of this is you might ship a web front end and your JavaScript might be fetched from a CDN, for example. That would be a good example of an external component. And then what do we have? Okay, so this is, walk us through this. So this is the
we had the idea
one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. We had the ability to pin a component to an exact version, or to mention no version at all. But in the nature of compatibility, we need to know a version range for some cases where we have like, yeah, everything later than 1.2, but not 2.0, for example, which means just 1.x or something like that. And we try to actually model that not only in text, which we did, but to have it in a schema as well. To have a rule that says you can't have a version and a version range at the same time. You can have no version, just a version or version range. And if you want to use a version range, the thing needs to be external. You can't have a version range on a concrete shipped dependency because this needs to be concrete. And we found a way to model this in JSON schema. I think there is no opportunity to model this in XML schema yet, so this is why we have it as text, which is the spec, but the implementation for JSON schema has this advantage that it actually could check for that.
That's amazing. I didn't know that kind of check was even possible. So congratulations on figuring that out. Any questions for Jan on this promotion?
You know, what's the owning data type and how is it referenced in the component structure?
What do you mean? It's a component?
Yeah, I can see the individual fields, but I'm looking where are the parents at? What's the parent type?
Every component now has this disability.
I just want to see the start of the definition, not just the field. I want to see it in context of the entire data type.
Well, let's look at one of the valid examples then, maybe.
That's a good idea, yeah.
That's a protobuf one. XML. Here's a JSON one. Okay. So here would be a component with a version range.
And pardon me, I saw some discussion early on, but I didn't follow it. Apologies. But version range is a specification that we are producing, or is it just a document that part of our spec?
It's a thing that Philippe defined when they discussed the package URL. They found the package URL is just for one version, as he told us like 20 minutes ago, and they needed a solution to define a version range. So it's the version range specification came up in the Perl cosmos somehow.
Yeah, so we already support VERS today with the vulnerability somewhere in I think it's under effects, I think, and you can specify a version or version range. So we already support this today.
So it's adopted.
VERS,
it's adopting a forward type. So it's a type that is being defined in the spec
Exactly. I just reused that one. I refactored it so in the previous pull request it was refactored so it would be reusable, and now it is reused. This is why there's no new definition or spec to that version range in particular.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we add commentary to that in the description that it's a future based upon a future spec that has not, been finalized or so? I don't know. I totally understand this and totally agree with this. I'm just trying to cross the T's and dot the I. So if somebody looks for this spec, how do they find it? Basically.
Isn't 1.0 already kind of finalized? I thought it was, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's finally it's master. Yeah.
We reference it did we reference it in the description of the type canonically?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean there was some confusion in the past, so I totally can relate why you're asking, because the verse spec was in the making for like a year or something, and we already referenced it. Its final location when it wasn't in the final location yet. So every one of our links to that spec went to a 404 page in the past, but eventually it got released, and so this is the reason why I'm actually using it right now. One of the blockers for that thing, actually.
Thank you. And please remind me, does the version spec account for all the semantic versioning type stuff with build stuff and everything? I assume it did. I recall we to review that at some point. But if I have like a developer level library that's not officially versioned by a package repository, is that accounted for as well? So it's
As
version.
long,
Yeah, so
yeah, I mean, it does semver, obviously. And then for every Perl type, for example, Node or Maven or whatever, that doesn't follow semver, Debian, Red Hat packages, etc. It supports all of those. What it does not support are some of the things that some commercial vendors have historically done. The common example, for example, is Windows 10 and 11 being newer than Windows 95.
Yeah,
right?
I'm worried about
It's-
like in my, so like this is the problem I just encountered recently. So I'm running my AI application on my machine, and dynamically I have a package that was a blast library, but it's not it's not an officially produced one. It's an intermediate one that was produced by a vendor that is based off of a versioned one in GitHub, but it was built and it extended the version to add its own name on top of it, that, you know, it's its own custom build of it, basically. So that's actually account for those things as well.
Yeah, it does. It does. You can actually, it's not as strict as Perl. You can actually create your own
That was my
vendor
concern.
type. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
actually create your own vendor type, which is amazing.
Yeah, since we're referencing Perl, I didn't know if the Perl type was as encompassing for those odd corner cases.
Yeah, yeah, and there are corner cases with version ranges for sure. Yeah, Philippe was smart. Yeah, he kind of figured that out. Him and the team kind of figured that out a while ago, which is, I think, one of the reasons why VERS actually took so long to actually get merged in. But yeah,
Thank
I'm
you
glad
for
we're
answering all my
supporting it.
thanks for answering all my questions to alleviate all my concerns.
Thanks, Matt. Always fun. Any more questions for Jan? All right. With that in mind, are there any objections to this promotion? All right, I hear none. Congratulations, John. This is passed.
Thank you, Jan.
I thank you. Yeah, I mean, it took so many people so long to write this thing and wrap their heads around it. So
Amazing.
everybody is thankful that this is, you know, I guess.
The last one, well, this one I save for last because it might devolve into discussion. Unfortunately, Philippe is not here to participate in that discussion, which is unfortunate. But with that in mind, because Philippe is not here, I don't necessarily know if I'm comfortable actually making this up for a vote today. I really want Philippe's input on this one. However, I do think it is useful to review it. Now, last time we had some discussions on one of the reasons why I think Philippe was not really in support of this particular enhancement was the fact that we could have multiple concluded expressions. Is that correct, Jan?
Yeah.
Or am I oversimplifying it?
That's one of them. I actually wrote a longer article which boils down to actually this. He says he was okay with moving that forward as long as we made sure that there was no ambiguity for concluded licenses. So what I did was I didn't modify this thing at all. It stays as it is, because what he came up with was actually a differently scoped issue, which I tried to create a new ticket for and asked him if this is what he wanted.
Okay, what was the ticket number on that?
Oh, wait a sec.
Do you have it handy? I briefly had seen it. It was a discussion on preventing multiple concluded licenses.
Exactly. It's somewhere in the not in the pull request, but in the original ticket to that thing, DD44, and then I tried to boil it down or to find a conclusion for that in the last comment. Yeah, it was this long one. And then, of course, Matt also had input
right here.
that I did not quite yet address because I wasn't sure about whether it's the same or it's a different thing. So, actually, need some input.
So
from
this is right. So this would, we believe, address the major concern that Philippe had in accepting this proposal, right? Okay.
Matt. Exactly, yep.
Would it be possible to get a, and it doesn't have to be the full 30 days. We can, would it be possible for you to also come to the next meeting with this fix in mind so that we could vote on the combined, these are the two tickets combined that we want to vote on?
This will be interesting because if I do that, then we will have 3 license-related tickets next time, which are already separated. And
Yeah, they can continue to be separate. I want them to be separate. I don't want you to change that. But in terms of the actual vote, I don't want to necessarily say that this one is like contingent upon this one, for example, being passed.
I thought about it, but I had no idea how I could do that because there's one thing adding a new structure, the other thing is moving another structure, and then the other thing is changing the text on a structure. These pull requests individually will look nice, but they are not combinable at the state that they were reviewed. Just from, yeah.
I mean, can we have an offline discussion on these things?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think
Yeah.
that speaks to like a month ago, I had that idea about evidence and attestations. I think there's an overlap there.
Maybe. One of the other options that we could theoretically discuss is whether or not we want to save. I mean, all fingers can point to me on this one, absolutely. But I'm a security person. I did not know a lot about licenses when CycloneDX was created. And there are certainly some design choices that I wish I did not make just because my knowledge at the time it wasn't there. Maybe Jan, this is an opportunity. If we need to fix it in 1.7, I mean, we can always fix it in 1.7. However, if what we actually want to do is a breaking change, which I would very happily vote for, so that we can actually do it right, then we should probably propose what we want in 2.0 as well.
At the current state, I don't see a need for a breaking change. I mean, there is opportunity for improvement, totally, yeah. Philippe, for example, proposed to get rid of everything and use SPDX license expressions only.
Oh,
Which-
no.
Which I can understand why he's saying that because it simplifies things, but yeah.
No.
Anyway.
Here's my take though. I still want to ask for an offline discussion, especially I'm looking at the clock.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I believe in what you're saying. I believe there can be a non-breaking change in 1.7, and I think it can be done correctly, and even in the 1.x line, if by adding to the license structure, My belief is this what I referenced a few minutes ago is the fact that who is concluding, what is concluding. That's the question you have to answer. So you can have multiple concluded licenses. So the argument I had a month ago was if multiple tools or individuals come to different conclusions, you want some attestation of that. You want to then reference the tool or component that made that conclusion for you and added that field.
Oh,
And it might be multiple. So that was my concept, and that's what I'd like to kind of fully discuss in a different
I had
forum.
that same concept for months until I learned that's not what concluded license means. Concluded license is the one license that's active, and there can only be one. Yeah.
According to who?
To lawyers speak that I needed to learn.
Well, the problem is I'll just say this firsthand. The lawyers will also differ in interpretation. And so it's coming upon us as spec authors for any semantic term that is used in our spec to fully define what it means in our domain. So, and I will say from an IBM legal point of view, and I've been in these conversations for years, concluded means nothing to a lawyer. They want to know who concluded it. So I will go back to what I said. I think attestation is needed regardless. And I think that multiple ones are expected, especially when we're actually running multiple tools and we're trying to merge bombs together into one concluded bomb for a component that we publish. So you're going to have multiple concluded things. And lawyers may want that and want to come to one conclusion, but that's kind of like that's the beauty in the eye of the beholder. It's is one lawyer from one company is not going to go with another company. So we need to be clear in our terms and definitions, and we do need to account for multiple concluded. Absolutely, 100%. That's my belief.
So I want to get to Nick in just a moment because I want to hear his input. But one thing I do want to kind of lay on the table is that we're going to be working really soon on what was it called? Citations. And citations is the ability for us to document what, when, where, and why, a certain field was, made. So if somebody concluded something, who was it? When was it? Right? All of that would actually be captured, not just for licenses, but for every single piece of data in CycloneDX, which is going to be an amazing addition to the spec. It could theoretically balloon a document, but for folks that actually want traceability, this is going to be huge. Nick.
Yeah, so I wanted to understand a bit more. I believe you said there is going to be a voting around this issue. What do you mean by voting?
Everything that we do in the community or in the TGs, for example, comes to this technical committee. And then we actually vote on whether or not that thing is going to make it into the specification or not.
All right. And is there going to be some discussions around this issue specifically? Can anybody join those discussions?
Yes, we want
right,
everybody to join. So we need to arrange an offline call. Jan, can you actually take this up since you're the lead on this particular feature? Could you maybe like schedule some time or whatnot? Let's get together in the private channel. We'll figure out. Nick, are you also on the private channel?
Yes, as well.
Okay, all right.
But
yes, we want everybody to kind of participate in fleshing this out.
Yeah, I wanted to bring some people from the clearly defined community. I believe there's going to be a lot of input around that, and this will affect the work of several people who use clearly defined. Also, I would be inclined to instead of having like some type of voting, that we rely on expertise from people like Philippe, so that, and other folks as well that use and have to look at licenses as part of their everyday life, right? So I'm not sure if how that voting works. I believe we should rely on those expertise opinions.
Yeah, I mean, all of the ECMA member organizations in this technical committee all have voting rights in the technical committee, and the experts will inform our decisions.
All
Is
right.
kind of how it
Yeah,
works.
I'll try to bring as many people possible to provide that informed decision. All right, thanks.
That'd be beautiful. I know we're at time, but I'm going to ask Ole to be brief.
You're on mute.
Ole, you're on mute.
Maybe he stepped away. Maybe he fell asleep.
No, he's still
Jan,
there.
you have the last word.
Okay, then. Sorry, Ole. I just need to know what the conclusion now was. So we decided to have an offline meeting and discussion regarding the multi-license thing.
Yeah.
And regarding the concluded license, whatever it is, that is a whole different topic and needs to be discussed too, as far as understood. So we have a meeting for that too, right?
I think a combined meeting on the license would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's all going to work together. I'm of the, well, we'll get to it all in the discussions, but why don't we arrange the discussions to talk about this and the multiple concluded and declared licenses, and maybe we can, maybe it's just a matter of fleshing out the description of this field, right? I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm. I would put that meeting in somewhere next week. Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's discuss offline. But thank you all so much. I thought this was a very, very good discussion today. So thank you all for your input. Again, expect a program and scope of work to be circulated probably in the next week or two regarding the possible TG4. So with that in mind, I wish everybody a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, Ole is back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I switched microphones.
Excellent.
Yeah, but John, what I wanted to say there was that the conclusion is different if you look at source code versus runtime SBOMs.
Yeah, that was my point as well, Ali. I replied to you.
An example of that is my project Camelio, where we have multiple files with BSD licenses, but when you build a Debian package, it's all GPL2, the binaries. And I've been having this discussion for years with the guys that build Debian packages, because they list all the licenses of all the source code files, and that's wrong.
Yeah,
and screws up my SBOMs.
I mean,
same issue, Ali. And it goes beyond that. Then the concluded license from any given tool can be overridden by our lawyers. So our lawyers can really
exactly. That's the next step.
So let me bring a real world example. I'm actually building software based on some other libraries, and they're all strange for a JavaScript project, but still they are assembled. So I have those like 20 different licenses from libraries I'm using, and they are bundled. And then I have multiple incoming licenses which are combined to an outgoing license, which is in my case Apache 2. So every library I use, which is assembled in some way, needs to be compatible to Apache 2. So I can license the assembled product as Apache 2.
Right, yeah.
And my declared license is Apache 2. I don't care what these inbound licenses are, because I'm licensing my final product as this one.
Exactly.
And this is the declared license I came up with. And then a lawyer might come up with, yep, that's true. This is the concluded license, and the declared license are the same. So
yeah, well, who's most guilty of those assumptions? GitHub puts an opinion on what to think the license is for a project,
Yeah.
without regard to
right.
what I declared.
Yeah.
It ignores what I declared completely.
And that's the whole situation, that why we need this declared thing,